what if, and there are all the series of possibilities. So, I assume, and I may be wrong, but I assume that if you are adopted, you've been adopted into a family that is your family. If you've been in the foster system your whole life, because I know 3 of you have been, well, you can pick a family. You can make up a family if you want. These are the people, your friends, the people that you would spend holidays with, the people that you love. They are your family. And for most of us, like, if you get into my actual, I draw my family tree, I have a confusion problem, right? Because all of you guys know, I was raised in a hippie household. I have more than one dad, and more than one mom, and more than one stepmom, and more than one stepdad. I have a whole bunch of people I call dad and mom. My actual diagram, my kindred diagram, the people who are my family, that's a mess. And my diagram's got dogs on them. Right? Yeah, because those are my babies. Right? Alita and Jack, they're my fur babies. Right? I only delivered one child, but I appear to have 3.5 because Tim, you know, his mom came over to me. I know he's 22, but he calls me mom, which is a little weird sometimes. But he calls me mom, I'm always like, yes. And he asked me when he came, he says, can I call you mom? I said, sure. And they started calling me mommy, and I was like, no, mom, I'm an adult. And it was good. Spencer calls me mommy? No problem. I know he wants something. Right? Yeah, the last time he called me mommy, he was in a shitload of trouble and he wanted something. He was also like 11. Right now, you're mom, mother, woman. These are the things. And every once in a while, I've changed his ringtone to Stewie. Right? Mom, mother, mom. And I found myself like answering the phone every time going, what? Right? And then I realized he wasn't doing that. All he was doing was on the other end listening to ring. And he was calling, which he never does. That's the use of voice on a telephone, God forbid, right? It's texting. So yeah, it got very annoying. It's all Pirates of the Caribbean and Pokemon now. Now I've got it. I know he's in real trouble when I hear, gotta catch 'em all. That means he's calling. So, our family is maybe not necessarily all about blood. And that's really what we're after here, right? Who is our family? So I'm not asking you for an extensive genetic tree unless that's the way you see your family. Now, when you turn this into me, obviously you're going to want to tag these people, right? Otherwise it don't make sense. Number 1 is you. Number 1 cannot be anyone else but you. Because everybody's kinship diagram is from their own perspective, right? The person I call grandmother, someone else might call sister, right? So it's from your own perspective. So the very first thing you put, number 1 is you. So this is what we call a key. On one page, you'll have these diagrams where you will write, you will do all of these pictures, however their picture turns out. But next to each one of these, you put a number. If you'd like to keep track, you can blacken in the ones that are dead. That's an anthropological thing to do. We blacken in the ones that are dead to help us know who's dead and who's alive. Squares are only to be used if you do not know the sex of the individual. Do not put yourself in a square. So this key, which is the second set of pages, the key has number 1, your name, refreshing, relationship to you, your name, what you call them. Actually, they were, sorry. Relationship to you, what you call them, their name. So, explain. Number 1, if I can name real quick, number 1 is ego, self, right? So my relationship is ego. My name is ego. My relationship is self, and I am Alexis Gray. Number 2 for me on my diagram is Spencer. So it says number 2, son, and then it says Spencer Cooper Boubert. And then it says Spencer. All right, so what I call him, Spencer Cooper Boubert, is what I typically call him. That's also another place to have a little fun. If you have an aunt that you secretly call bitch, that's where you write that down. You know, that's matters. So this is also where you find out if you call her Tio, but it turns out she's a cousin, right? You can call her that, but we're not going to use the very, very vague kinship terms either, because this allows us to directly figure out how they're related to us. So, my half-sister isn't my half-sister. She's actually my father's daughter, right? My sister could be sister. My brother could be brother, if I had him, which I don't actually have him. My mother only produced one child. My dad was a happy seed spreader. So those would be my father's daughter. Or if it's your cousin, cousin's too vague. Cousin is your cousin because they are your mother's sister's son, mother's sister's daughter, mother's sister's daughter's husband, mother's sister's daughter's daughter, mother's sister's daughter's daughter's daughter. So the possibilities that you use, they come either from your mother or your father, right? Unless they're siblings. And so if it's your brother or your sister, it's just brother or sister. But if it's your mom's sister, it's mother's sister. If it's your mother's mother, it's mother's mother. And it's not grandmother, it's mother's mother, or mother's father, or father's mother, or father's father, or father's father's brother, father father's brother's wife, father father's brother's son, father father's brother's son's son, father father's brother's son's wife. Get it?
So in my language, we already have terms for them. Like Hala is from my mom's. It's my mom's sister.
Right.
So can we kind of just put that?
No, you have to put. I need to know. Like I'm following your diagram. So I go down to number 62, and it says that it's your mother's sister's, your mother's sister's daughter. Right? And I go, number 63, mother's sister's daughter. I go, mother's sister's daughter. Got it. That's number 63. So if you tell me what the term is, but you should put that. That's in a quote, right? That's the thing you call her.
Okay.
Right? And then her name. Now, you may not know all the names. You may know that, like I have a half-sister, I don't actually know her name. So she is my father's daughter, and she's my father's daughter, blank name. I know she was born. I know she's 9 years younger than me. And that's all I know. Right? That's all I know. You know what you know.
So how many people do you actually know on this?
How many people do you know?
A lot.
Remember what the instructions were? What are the instructions? You're supposed to look at that and kind of consider who goes on and who doesn't.
Okay, so like first line is you, second line is dad, mom.
You mean in the key? Not on the diagram.
No, on the diagram.
On the diagram, no, you come from parents.
Wait, what?
Okay, so let's start. I'll show you. Let's do this again. Alright, so Spencer Gray, right? He has a mother and a father, right? I am married to this guy. I'm not married to this guy. This is his wife now.
Oh, you start from the bottom.
No, I started from ego. That may not be the bottom. Like for me, ego isn't the bottom. I have things below me. I have a son below me. If this was from my point of view, my diagram, that's not the bottom, is it?
No.
Right. So this is from his point of view, and he's number one. He's ego. He's doing it from his point of view. Right? And then I'm going to make myself number 2, and that's 3, and that's 4, and that's 5, and say, oh yeah. Let's add Hannah. She's 6. Now she has no daughter, but we don't put her there. Just no blood dinners. Now he may decide in his own diagram, yeah, that may be, but that guy isn't really alive. Right, he may decide to put her there even though she's not actually blood to him. So this is Spencer's sister Hannah. This is Spencer's stepsister Catherine. But we don't normally put steps in. That's usually not included in the diagram, in a blood diagram. I'm an anthropologist, I'm a scientist, my steps don't go in. You may go, no, absolutely. I was raising these people as family. You know, he and Catherine have been together since he was 5. That is his sister, whether he likes it or not. Even though technically they share no blood. So, right. And for Spencer, actually, there's a little key. That's Bilbo. So, we have figured out where Bilbo comes from because there was obviously no girl that involved. It's his cat. Get it? It's his cat. He's the cat daddy. There you go. But that's just being silly. So here we go. From his point of view, his mom, me, mother, father, mother's husband, who he calls Rick, is Rick, right? Father, he calls father and is father. This is Leslie. Sorry, I love her. So she is to him father's wife. She's not his mother. She's father's wife. And he calls her Leslie, but he also calls her mom. So mom goes in that category there. And then this is Hannah, right? And then this is the father's wife's, we're going to have to call him ex-husband or husband because, even though they were never married, because we have to explain where she came from. She didn't spring out of the ground from nothing. Right. Okay, now we have to go up from there. So mom is from dad and my mom, and that is no longer the case. And okay, so here I have a problem because I have to get cousins. So what am I going to do? I'm going to spread the line out. Okay, so over here we'll get the first brother. Over here we'll put my dad's wife there, and from there we'll get his Aunt Jessie and Axel and Stefan. From Stefan there is Brian, and from Axel there is Justin and Tiffany. So he would describe these people. This is his mother's, father's, daughter's, son, mother's, father's, daughter's, son, mother's, father's, daughter's, son. But this guy is mother's, father's, daughter's husband, mother's, father's, daughter's husband. Get it? Yeah, I told you, anthromath, right? And this guy's got a number, this one's got a number, and this one's got a number, and then, okay, now I have another problem. Here, I did this across his dad's line, his dad's line, right? So typically, actually, what I would have done is reversed them. I would have, because my dad's line is bigger than my mom's line, I probably would have made the mother and father go this way, so that one goes this way. Like I said, you want to do it in pencil. And if I may make a really strong recommendation, cut out shapes, number the shapes, like number one's you, and number two is a brother, and number whatever, and then just put them on a piece of paper and just keep spreading them out until you've got it, so you can see the schematic of it. And then every time someone's not in the right space, you then just start moving them along until you get them in the right space.
Does it really matter where you number after you?
No. You're number one. All of the numbers, irrelevant.
You actually have a good question. What if you have like the grandparents that were married but they're both dead and you are married and dead?
Married and dead.
So you don't have to cross out.
No, they didn't divorce, right? So no, just married and dead. Yeah, you start with one. So nobody hears dad. But if we were to do his dad, his dad, okay, hold on, I got badly, hold on. All right, that's mom. And I call her mom, by the way. That's my grandmother, and I call her mom. So this is my grandpa, and that happened, and that happened, and that happened. He died. She just died. They divorced, but she died. He is also dead. She's dead. So they divorced. She died before they divorced. And then he died before they divorced. Right? And then from them, almost there.
What does that mean?
That means I had to cross the line. He's technically, well, he's actually technically their siblings. He's only a half sibling, but he comes from his father. So he is crossing the line so I can get him on his dad's generator, like on my, so it's only two. It's my dad's brother. Half brother, yeah.
How do you differentiate triangle, circle?
Triangles are men, circles are girls.
How can you tell like, if he just had 3 wives or if he had a wife and then those are...
My assumption is that because he's a married, that all wives were consecutive rather than overlapping.
Or I mean, like, how do you know that?
How do I know that he wasn't polygamous? Oh, because it's not assumed that they are. Because most of the time when we put them on the tree, we're putting them on the tree because they make babies. So circles together don't make babies, and triangles together, no babies. So there's no family that still exists. They exist. Get a little nothing, yeah. That's all. And so you get the idea? All right. Yeah.
How important is it to be sent?
Not important.
So I can have a hearing on my dad's side of the meeting.
You could decide, this is all such a mess, I'm going to take the line up from my parents and just take my dad way over here and start my dad's side. As long as it's on the same line with your mom, because they're the same generation, right? Same line, but way over there. It's okay, it's fine. A lot of people do that. That's why I say wrapping paper. You can get real far with wrapping paper. How many times have I answered that question? Not that. How many times have I answered the question? Does anyone want to answer the question for her? Was anybody listening? Therein lies the very first problem. You're all so busy talking about it and already starting to scribble it that you stop listening. I'm only going to do this once. I've already done it twice, actually, so I'm already a liar. But how far back does she need to go? As far as she can, but within reason. Right? Don't expect you to get to the 17th century. Right? I don't expect you to start getting on Ancestry.com. I can do that, but I was a pro. It was my job. Right? I can get all the way back to 1400s. Yeah. But actually, part of that's not any great thing that I did. You remember there were these nasty people called Nazis. Right? When you were, my family German, obviously they were there after the war, so not Jewish, and they had to prove that they weren't Jewish, and the way they proved they weren't Jewish was by these very long, detailed genealogies from church records. So they had to prove it, and everyone belongs to the church. Everyone, period. No one doesn't belong. Atheists or no, you belong. So every record, every birth record, everything is recorded. So it goes all the way back. I can get back to the 1400s just to prove I wasn't a Jew, but I always think that those genealogies are a little suspect, right? Like if there's suddenly a Goldberg in the pile, you might be like, that person doesn't do this, right? So yeah, they do worry me a little bit. But on my mom's side, I know all those things. Now my dad's side, same thing, because they had already started those kinds of genealogical examinations after World War I, and he's a migrant between World War I and World War III. So because Germans are assholes, I know a lot. That's really the answer. That's why I know there's a donut.
The numbering system, I know we're supposed to be 1, but after that, is it like how close we are to people?
It's entirely up to you. Your mom could be 180 if you had that. So
I could put dad,
whatever. You could make dad, you could be like, I'll number you last, bastard. Right? You want to do that? You go right ahead. What matters is you're number 1. That's what matters. You're number 1. You guys got it? Do Monday. All right, now, one more thing. On the subject of poster board, take this from years of experience, my darlings. I've never seen a poster board one come in as an A, and here's why. Poster board ones, people just make much bigger circles and triangles. They're somehow lulled into a false sense of believing they have all this space, and they end up with these really messy, where the circles are like this on poster board. Dude, if you can do that on poster board, you can do that on an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper and probably do a better job. Right? So if, you know, wrapping paper is something you cannot find, or painter's paper, that stuff you get at Lowe's, it's like $2 and it's rolls and rolls and rolls of brown craft paper, fine. You can also use this magical stuff, it's called tape. I know, earth shattering, but you take tape and a piece of notebook paper and you tape it, you know, you turn it sideways, long ways, and then you tape another one on it, and probably one more, you're probably good. 4 sheets of notebook paper taped together. Very few of us have the kind where we would even have to tape another sheet on top or below. If you look at our kinship diagrams, they're crazy fat and very short. Right, unlike I had a student who, she was dynastic Chinese.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it went back, her diagram went back to before Christ was born. But it was really skinny. They didn't track the girls. It was males. It was a really skinny line. Male, you know. Like, yes, they were married and they had kids, but there was like, oh yes, a girl child was born. Here's the boy child and here's his family. Right? Oh yes, a girl child was born. Here's the boy child and here's his family. And so, boy, was it extensive about boys. And then about girls, not so much. But it was page after page after page of this little skinny line going down, which I thought was kind of funny to me. Just to me alone. She was like, Nicole, do you know your sister? Okay. All right, so this is a do your best. Do your best. All right, now let's continue on with our kinship discussion. Also, I've been giving this assignment for 1,000 years, so if you ever knew anybody who had any classmates, which is about 8,000 people actually at this school, chances are good someone like you has done it before and can certainly help you if you have a question. And then there's this great stuff called email, feel free to talk to them. All right, so now we're looking at Iroquois teeth. Remember we looked at the Hawaiian one and it was like, well, that's complicated. No, it's not really. It's easy, right? Mothers and mothers are all your mothers and fathers generation. Everyone who's even a cousin to you is brother and sister. Now, let's look at the Iroquois because they do something called matrilineal kinship, but they're not matriarchal. So matrilineal, figure from your mom, but mom isn't the one with the power. Mother's brother is. They're avuncarchal. Uncle's got the power. So, here, doesn't matter what sex this is. I hate that they do this, though. It results in bad habits, but okay. So this is your brother, this is your sister, this is your father and your mother, but let's go on your father's side. So your father's brother is also called father, and his kids are brother and sister. And his sister, though, father's sister, is called father's sister, and her kids are cousins. On this side, mother, her sister is called mother, her kids are called brother and sister, her brother is called mother's brother, and his kids are called cousins. So, in this case, we're looking at the difference in terminologies between what we call parallel and cross. So these are parallel cousins to this person. The reason they are parallel cousins is the parent of them is the same sex sibling to the parent. So in this case, mother's sister is mother. In this case, father's brother is father. And their kids are considered siblings. Whereas the crosses, father's sister or mother's brother, their kids are cousins. Does that make sense? So these are called cross cousins. And these are called parallel cousins. This is about the sex of the parent, right? So if it's mom, it has to be your sister. If it's dad, it has to be his brother. Right? Got it? Okay. Now, probably one of the more complex naming systems and kinship systems is in where everything's about cattle. E. Evans Pritchard studied them. Your name is going to change over the course of your life based on the cattle you own. So, they're patrilineal, the boys and the girls. They belong to their father's lineage, but the boys can pass the lineage on, and the girls cannot. The girls pass the lineage on to their husband's lineage. That's the same as last names, right? Get that? So their clan structure was patriclans. So here you have a lineages that several lineages that all come together in a clan, and that's a patriclan. It's figured by your dad. In this case, it could be single lineages, it could be a bunch of lineages, and they have to practice exogamous marriage, which means they cannot marry within their clan. They cannot marry within their lineage. They have to marry outside of their group, which means they have to go to other villages. So, if you have a male, right, everybody they sire is a full clan member, right, because they are passing the lineage down. So their kids are going to stay within the village. The females are going to marry away. They're going to go into a different village and produce children for their husband's clan. Right, so for the pattern. But, as a sort of side note, every kid's going to get a different name based on from their mother's family to their father's family. And when they're in puberty, they're going to get a name that is based on their favorite ox. And that's what their friends are called. Right? So like if your favorite ox was named Spotty, at 13 you become Spotty. Regardless of what your parents called you. You become Spotty. All right. Guest, who's the author of our textbook, saw that, patrilineage in China, not surprising, and they have exogamous marriage, got to marry outside of your village. But because of this, in the village he studied, 90% of the men had the same last name. Right, because everybody was followed the patrilineage, right? 90% of the people in his village were named Lu. Now, this didn't mean that everybody was, the ladies left. Ladies who were born Lu went somewhere else and made children for those patrilineages. It gives the impression of being severely inbred, but it's not actually at all. So they were able to trace their origin all the way back about 700 years. And of course, the family Lu had the greatest power within the village, which is fine if 90% of the people in the village are also named Lu. It's not like, oh gosh, terrible disparity. It works out okay. All right. So, the Cultural Revolution. During the Cultural Revolution in China, we know this as the communist regime, but during the Cultural Revolution, so we have Chairman Mao and all this stuff is going on, a lot of the traditional power structures were dissolved. So power based on name, genealogical records, power based on religion, almost all the monasteries were wiped out. So we had this whole sort of cleansing, if you will, that removed a bunch of information. And now they're trying to kind of rebuild some of that. We can only get back in that particular village now back in the 1900s, right? Because we can still remember some of those people. But this is kind of sad because while it did exactly what they wanted, the Cultural Revolution, they wanted no one to have power based on their lineage. Everyone was equal. That was the point. It was kind of devastating for the news. All right, the most effective strategy humans have developed. Your book covers this. The previous book we used covered it in the whole chapter, and I kind of think it deserves a whole chapter because marriage is super important. It's actually a universal. There is no culture on the planet that doesn't practice something like marriage, even though sometimes it doesn't look anything like what we recognize. One of my favorites is in China. It's called a walking marriage. And the walking marriage, the female stays with her family, the male stays with his family, and he visits. She may have more than one walking husband, It's not important. The child doesn't belong to his clan, it belongs to her clan, right? And his sister's kids belong to his clan, right? So everybody keeps track of their, there's no crossing over of families. It is exogamous because you have to go between villages, which is why it's called a walking marriage. And of course, during the Cultural Revolution, people got pissed about it because they were like, hey, in fact, they stopped offering food or any kind of assistance to women who could not name their children. They're called the mom. Yeah, it was like, and they wouldn't, they named their children, they couldn't name the fathers of the children. They knew who they were, but they made them sound like they were just, coors who didn't know the fathers of their children. They knew who they were, but that wasn't the important part to them. And there's a group well, basically it's Nepal. Essentially there's Tibet. We see lots of marriage options in Tibet that are pretty cool. They believe that marriage is too passionate. That when a couple marries, particularly the woman, her passion becomes irrational. And she may make dumb decisions based on this passion. So they frown on marriage until a woman is much older, typically past childbearing age. So what they do is the men and the women, the young men and the young women, form temporary relationships. And when I say temporary, I mean they are temporary. So the girls and the guys will be hanging out, and a girl will take something from the male, a pack of cigarettes, a cell phone, whatever. And she'll say, I'll give that to you later tonight. That, every guy knows where every girl lives. So he'll show up at her door, and if she answers the door, he goes to bed with her. If her sister answers the door, he goes to bed with her. It depends on who answers the door. And then she may actually make multiple dates for the same evening. The deal is, they mustn't disturb the parents, right? He's got to kind of sneak in and sneak out.
What's the goal of this?
Babies.
To make a child?
Make babies and sex, because sex is fun.
But don't the parents want to know who did?
No, because it doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter
The
to
children,
the
the
dad?
child, her child belongs to the family,
Not the dad.
not to him. Who knows who he is? That's not important. And in fact, actually, it's considered super rude in that culture to comment on likenesses. You'd never say, oh, that guy kind of looks like Jeff. You'd never say that. You'd be like, mm-mm. And actually, this kind of behavior has been seen in most cultures throughout the world, at least at some point. The English, for example, had regular ceremonial events where what we would consider monogamy is not favored. One of my favorite holidays of the year is something called Beltane. Beltane is done on the last day of April, so April 30th. It's overnight. And people in the villages empty into the forests. And in fact, there are songs about it. If you're in bed, you should be dead. It's basically the rules, because otherwise, either you're dead or you're old. Everybody should be in the forest. And you have sex with whomever you want. Like whoever. It also, long-term marriage is very successful because it lets off that little bit of, I always liked the baker. Great. Well, on May 1, April 30th to May 1. May 1 is May Day. On that day, you and the baker. And what the older people do is they tie biscuits and crackers and cookies in the trees so the lovers don't have to come in. That's what you do. So even now, I am, the chances that anyone's coming into my backyard forest, I'm not inviting lovers, but I consider myself of the older group, and I still tie cookies to trees overnight just as a thing because I think it's adorable. I used to get the kids to do it. Yeah, Cal Spencer and Matthew out there tying cookies to trees. My sister, Christian, very fundamentalist Christian actually, quite born again. She came over one day and there we were tying cookies to trees, and she was like, "What are you doing?" And I was like, pagan ritual so that babies could be born, but I don't say that because I look at her face. Remember, she's 6'2", she'd kill me. And I'm stumbling, and Spencer goes, it's a cookie bush, like Raggedy Ann and Andy. And she's like, oh, that's great. And keeps going. I was like, you're the best kid ever. Thank you for lying for your mom. Oh, it's awesome. So these are considered totally normal. And again, in those cultures, those babies are considered special. The babies that are born from those unions are special. This is actually, if you think about it, from an animal point of view, quite adaptive. Because you may be married to someone who you may not be biologically compatible with. Maybe you don't have the same RH factor. They didn't know anything about RH factors. You may be with someone that you miscarry with over and over and over and over again because you're having compatible blood types. But you and the baker don't. So, baby! Everybody wins! And it introduces a lot more variation to the population. See, the thing about marriage is there to introduce social control on sex. Because that's what it's really about. It's about controlling babies, right? The number one STD from sex is? Babies. Right, so we have to have some sort of social control over how many show up, when, and why. That's what it's about. People don't get married because they want to be institutionalized, right? They get married so that society says it's okay for them to have the sex in. When I say I introduce you to my husband, and some of you come to Harvest Festival this Friday, you will meet Rick, and I will introduce you to my husband. And I said, this is my husband Rick, and you will say, pleased to meet you. But what it actually said to you is, this is the guy that I'm socially sanctioned to have sex with. Right? But that would be weird for me to say. My mom, a little odd, she always introduces me to her boyfriends as her lovers. This is my lover 250. I was like, oh God, Mom, every time you say that, now I have to picture you naked with him. You, right? Mother, but she's like, well, when you introduce that person as your husband, it's the same thing. You're saying, this is the person I have sex with. I'm like, yes, but this is the person I'm socially sanctioned to have sex with. We had a ceremony. And that's actually a big deal, right? Any of you who've been through a wedding know that there are all these things that we do as rites of passage that allow the social sanctioning of our sex. You're not supposed to have sex before marriage, right? By the way, please do. But you're not supposed to because, you know, babies, right? But, you know, there's birth control, so go ahead and test drive the machine. Much better plan. But before we get married, we have these rites that tell us it's about sex. The bachelor party, the bachelorette party, right? I missed the bullet. I almost married someone. I didn't, thank goodness. But the wedding was called off 3 weeks before the wedding. So everything was planned. Invitations were out, dresses were bought. It was a done deal. I didn't call it off. So I was the woman scorned. But lucky for me, that turned out okay, because he's a douchebag. But he was a really cute douchebag. I wasn't really listening. My friends were all like, we hate him! And I was like, you don't have to fuck him. So that's really what I do, and that's how this is all going to work out. And they were like, no, he's a bastard. So he bailed to fight himself. He ran to China because he was pretty sure I'd kill him. And he was probably not wrong. He did start digging a hole in the backyard. I have a lovely pond now, though. So but my friends were like, hey, we need to have a bachelor party, a bachelorette party, which has been planned long before. We were all supposed to go to Vegas. And I was like, I don't want to go to Vegas now. I want to go sit in the corner and eat a lot of ice cream and cry. That's what I want to do. And they were like, nope, you're having a Miss the Bullet tour. So they took me to Vegas, and they did all of the bachelorette things because they had been planning them for a year. So they put me in they gave me a necklace with plastic penises on it. They lit up. And then they gave me a crown that was just a big phallus from the middle of my head, like a unicorn. Right? And they were taking me for places, and I'm wearing this thing that says bachelorette, and I was like, you were making this so much worse. And they were like, no, what we're telling the world is that you're socially sanctioned to have sex. And you certainly are. And And I was like, no, the person I have sex with is now having sex with someone else. Thank you very much. And they were like, yeah, and there is an entire Las Vegas full of people. And we're advertising that you're available, but you don't want to be available. You just want to be naughty available. And I was like, no, this is a bad idea. I just want to cry, right? That's what I want to do. And they made like pasta. There was penis pasta. They were one thing after the other. And my students who were adorable, because this happened right at the end of the semester. And my students who, I didn't tell them I wasn't getting married. I just didn't mention anything. And then I walk into my classroom, and my classroom is festooned with penises. When I finally did end up marrying Rick, I also was doing the whole like, you know what, let's just keep this really low profile, because last time that was really embarrassing, right? Everybody knew I was getting married, and then everybody knew I had been dished at the altar. That kind of shame, oh, pain, right? So much pain. Although, gotta hand it, they threw me a cake. Like when I came back from the summer, because nobody knew it hadn't happened, I left for the summer, came back, they had a cake, congratulations. Like, whacked a post-it on my cake, and I was like, I love Morgo. People were very kind. But so when we finally did have this wedding, my friends were all like, we have to go have the party. And I was like, no. I walk into my classroom, penises! Right? It was like, what is this? And there were like even the foldy kind, you know, like the ones that like do wedding bells, so they did that with the penises. And there was a penis on every single one of these desks. Right? All of you are like, you're paying for penises, right? And I'm standing there going, what are you doing? And they're like, well, now you're socially capable of having sex. I was before. And they were like, no, marriage, socially approved sexual and economic union. You guys will be together, and that's the way it is. And I was like, yeah, but I think it's so funny that we treat marriage like, and now you're finally able to have sex. My son walked me down the aisle. Clearly not a virgin. Like, I didn't wear white because, well, Spencer walked me down the aisle. Who would I have been fooling? Right? That's why we're red. I thought it made a better statement. Right? And we had a party, not a wedding. We happened to have got married in the middle of the party. That was the deal. We had a big theme party. We got married in the middle of it. That was cool. We had a good time. But my friends tied penises to my car. Why? Because, right? Why? Because I have great friends, right? His friends, because I was like, look, he has to have a really big party because he's never been married before. Right? He made it to, you know, his mid-30s without ever having done that. And so I was like, you know what? He should have a really good party, because the deal with a guy's bachelor party is he's supposed to realize the world is full of freaks. And that he's marrying the best choice. Like, I am to look angelic in comparison to nasty, dirty strippers. That's what I want to do, right? And my friends, being good friends, took him to the nastiest strip clubs ever. Admittedly, I paid for it, but who cares? I was like, go, lap dances. Make sure they look like they have scurvy. Like, here, take them. He doesn't remember any of it. Because they got drunk in the limo on the way to the strip club. Yeah, I think so. But also he's really shy, right? And so, like, my male friends were all like, lap dances for everyone. And he was like, personal space, comfort, oh God. Right, like, it was a little much for me. But I think somewhere in the end of the night, because when I got him back, because they basically dropped him off at the house, I had planned, I put up like beds everywhere and little things of aspirin and bottles and buckets for everyone. I was like, drink this before bed, take these. You know, like I made hangover cures for everybody. I'm that woman, I am. But they kind of dumped Rick off on the step. Vomit all the way down his body. He's still drunk and he's passing in and out and vomiting. And I'm like, well, now you're socially allowed to have sex, but no, dear. You come inside. I dragged him inside, and he was like, "Bleh." So sexy. Yeah, because that's what marriage is, right? Now, why do marriages fail so heavily in the United States? Why are they such a train wreck for us?
Children.
Children. The STD is part of it, sure. But what do you think the other reason is? When we get married, there's some other choices, right? Some people, it's one polygamy, multiple marriages. Some people, it's one man, multiple women, polygyny. Sometimes it's one woman, multiple males, polyandry. And those actually tend to be very successful. Arranged marriages, super successful, right? Arranged marriages have a very long success rate. But marriages like we do, when a man loves a woman, or a woman loves a woman, or a man loves a man, but they come together because of love. I love you. Right? I can't live if living is without you. Right? That shit. Turns out that doesn't last. It's cute in a pop song. It's adorable. Right? We love movies where guy loves girl, guy screws up, guy figures it out, girl takes him back. Right? Oh. Guy finds girl, girl loves guy, guy eventually figures out guy loves girl, they get married. Right? We love this story. We watch it all the time. The same story. Over and over, it's different faces. Right? Oh, it's so romantic. It's so romantic. It turns out it's not romantic. Because, well, it's not lasting. We all love that feeling of, oh my God, I will die without that person, right? That heart beating in your chest when they walk in the room and you're like, oh. But it turns out that's not sustainable and shouldn't be. Imagine if you had to spend the rest of your life that every time you walk in your living room, that would actually suck, right? That's not the goal, where, every time you're like, I can't be where you aren't. I can't be where you aren't. I can't go to work. I can't breathe. I can't live if living is without you. How do I breathe without you? You go like this. But you wouldn't want to live that way. You guys all know that being in love feels a lot like having the flu.
The love book.
Yeah, the love bug. And really, isn't that awesome? It's not. It's also not sustainable. We get married with these ideas. If you look at weddings, it's all about youth and love and romance. And really, our American weddings have very little to do with things that actually make a marriage work. You live for children, you don't die for love. Right? It's just true. And very rarely in weddings is it ever about like, here's how you're going to communicate. We also take sides. Even in our ceremony. You walk in, are you on the bride side or the groom side? Most of my friends, I'm like, I don't know, can I sit in the middle? Actually, most of my friends, I'm usually efficient, so that's usually pretty simple. I get to stay in the middle, but I usually say the words. Because I'm a licensed minister. Because let anyone do that these days. No, so we make them choose sides. If you have a friend who gets married and her husband's like, oh my God, or she says, oh my husband is this and I'm really pissed, da, 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 da. And what do you say because you're her friend?
That asshole.
That asshole! That bastard! That really sucks that you have to go through that. Ah! You've taken her side, right? That doesn't actually help anyone stay married, as it turns out. What helps people stay married? Oh, when that happened to me, right? That's what arranged marriages do. Arranged marriages don't assume that whole, although there is often still love. So look at a Bollywood video for 5 seconds. It'll be like clear that arranged marriages don't mean a loveless marriage. There still seems to be a lot of teeth gnashing and wailing and love that are still going on. I love Bollywood. It makes me so happy. And I don't know if you've ever seen Indian soap operas, but they're fabulous. I love them. I'm terribly, terribly addicted to several of them. But, and it's after they're married. And this is because of the love that was between Rama and Sita. Right? Oh, God, such an endless love there was there. So, in arranged marriages, when you as the wife have something fucked up happen in your marriage, your mom or his mom tells you what you're supposed to do about it. Right? And as a guy, if you're like, go to your dad and you go, I don't understand my woman. I walk in and she's like, and walks out. What do I do? Your dad has an answer, as it turns out. There's nothing new under the sun. Right? You just go to the people who've already done this successfully and you ask them. That is an awesome way to keep a marriage together. We're not good at that because we're always like, how is this feeding me? This is not matching my needs. I'm a person, I have needs. He is not fulfilling my needs. So my options are to still fulfill my needs, either with someone else or leave him because he's imperfect. I assure you, the grass is the same on both sides of the hill. I mean, okay, admittedly, I'm much fonder of my second husband than I was of my first husband, but there are some things that are the same. Some things just come with husband. Like every once in a while, my husband will say, oh, no, you can't do that. I'm sorry, what? What did you say? I know, well, you can't do that. It's not for the best of our family. And I'll be like, oh, you can't tell me what to do. Owned by you? He may be right, but he said you can't do that. So he has to figure out a different way to tell me. Like, I love animals, and if left to my own devices, I will adopt all of them. I am that person. If I lived by myself, there would be 100 cats and like 25 dogs and a moth. That would happen. And every time I'm like, because someone the other day was adopting out a baby pig, and I was like, oh, let's go get a pig, let's go get a pig, let's go get a pig. And he was like, no. Did you just say no to me? I am the light of your life. It was a simple request. And I didn't even have to ask you because you're not the boss of me. You know, and I can hear myself talking and I'm like, how far am I going with this? I think I might be on the ground here. And he'll be like, no, we cannot have a pig. Is that your final word on this? Yes. What if I get one anyway? I will not be happy and I will not take care of it. I count very heavily on his support for these things. I guess I don't get a pig. Now I have learned one other thing I pass on to you, and that is that in fighting, we tend to get real nasty, just like we do with our friends, right? And may I recommend that you remember that words are water. They're really easily spilled when you pitch to pick back up again. So once you've said, I never liked your mother, you can't take it back, no matter how much you want to. So, I never liked your mother, your penis is small, your boobs are small, you're boring in bed. This is, there's actually multiple books called What's Love Got to Do With It, and then the story of Tina Turner. Now this was a bad marriage, right? Tina and Ike, or Bobby Brown and Whitney Houston, that didn't work out so well. She's dead now. So. Yeah, so we have this idea of love. What's love got to do with it? Who needs a heart when a heart can be broken? Right? The rest of the world, romantic love is not a motivator for marriage. And they recognize that when you're marrying two families, you're marrying two families. When we marry two families, it becomes a fight and whose house are you going to for Thanksgiving? That doesn't happen elsewhere. Two families come together, two families celebrate together. And it's probably not only two. It's probably 8 or 9 or 12 families. Everyone is married in. This giant thing comes together. And there is a pull of power. Which family is the most powerful, who has the most space. All of those things matter, but they're all considered before the marriage is entered into. It's not an afterthought. So, being married for love is kind of a bummer. So again, it's a socially approved sexual union. When you get married, you have this idea that you're doing it forever. And I will admit, I've said it twice. Till death do us part. I meant it both times. And my first husband had the ill grace of not dropping back. that meant that no, and I was his second wife. There has been a third wife. That's fine. That's really what happens in North American society. When I say till death do us part, what do we really mean? Until you piss me off enough that I find someone else. Now we hope that's not what you mean. And I agreed with this husband. I was like, we go through this battle, we either come back with our shields or on them. One or the other. That's till death do us part, right? We come back from the battle with our shields or on them. 300 Spartan. We're with me here. So there are no nerds in this room. Okay, so. And the idea is that when you get married, you have this sexual relationship with someone, but you also have an economic one, right? If my husband goes out and buys a speedboat, my husband has gone out and bought a speedboat that we are responsible for because I'm married to him. My first husband was a financial disaster, and he committed all kinds of fraud and things, and it turned out I ended up paying for them. Because sexual economic union includes also the economic part. So like he didn't file our taxes for 10 years. Yeah, we would do the taxes every April. I'd sit down and figure it out, I'd write the check, I'd give everything, and we were always doing it like right before midnight. He'd run out to that midnight post office so they'd get posted, and then he'd come back and we'd be like, okay, another year reverted, because we are procrastinators, and we were always broke, and figuring out how we were gonna pay for this was ridiculous. Okay, and he was a lawyer. So we could do this. And what I found out later was he was waiting a few weeks and then taking the check for that we had done for the IRS and taking out that much money because I was going to balance the checkbook and I would know if that much was still not there. Never filed it. So I left him, and then like a month later was tax time, and so I was like, this year, not going to be April 15th rule. I'm going to do it right on time, and I filed my own taxes, and I made a grand like $8,000 a year, so I was like, I believe the government will be returning some monies back to me, right? Like, I believe this comes back this time. And what I got instead was an IRS man at the door to arrest me. They were like, now we found you. And I was like, you found me? I believe there's been some mistake. For tax fraud, I'd have to owe you something. And then they showed me that I had not filed taxes since I married him. And I was like, yes, I have. Yes, I have. Yes, I did. Of course, I didn't take that route. When I bailed, I didn't grab the tax records as one of the many things I grabbed as I was running. I didn't do it. So I was like, I have no records. I have nothing. I don't know. And it turns out, thank God, in California, they have something called the innocence spouse clause. If you really can prove you had no idea, you don't go to jail. You still owe them the money. And because we were married, I owed them half of the money. Half of the money was $100 grand. I made $8,000 a year, and I owed them 50 grand. Yeah, I paid them back every penny. And that was because I was married to them, right? That's one of the deals about marriage, is you are absolutely responsible for the stuff your spouse does. Keep that in mind while you're marrying that person that you're like, hey, you're a rebel. You might want to consider what jail looks like. I certainly did. But the good news is they eventually got the other half out of him, which made me quite happy. For a while, they were like, we can't find him. I was like, here's his address. They were like, we don't know where he works. I'm like, here's the address, here are his hours. So yeah, he was like, the IRS found me. Oh yes, I imagine they have. Sometimes we have a contentious relationship, but for the most part it's okay. So you have to keep this in mind. Now, nobody gets married with the idea of until it gets boring, but that is the reality, and I love this time. When you've been married a long time, you just know what the other person thinks, and he says, no, you don't. Notice that neither of them are speaking. So he has, in fact, knows exactly what she's thinking. He's just disagreeing with her. And there is something really annoying about being with someone forever. When you are married to someone, you are equally yoked. And the thing that was so very cute before may not be. For me, it was peanut butter spoons. Yeah, my first husband would take a spoon and he would stick it in a thing of peanut butter and he'd lick it and then he'd stick it to the sink. And then he would grab another one and he would stick it in the peanut butter because he wouldn't put the same one back in. That would be disgusting. And so then he'd stick it in the peanut butter and he'd lick it, not the back side, just the spoon side. and stick the sticky back to the sink. And then do it again. And then he put some water in the sink. So really, what you had when you got home was the smell of rotting peanut butter. Drove me insane. And I drove him crazy too. Turns out I hum while I work. Like, I didn't even know I'm doing it, but I'm like a constant hummer. I'm a constant source of sound. And he'd be like, could you shut up? And I'd be like, I wasn't talking. Right? But I hum. I also secret eat chips in bed. Right? So I leave little chip fragments. I love animals, and I don't care that neither of my husbands have not been allergic to them. Both of my husbands horribly allergic to animals. And I either bring them home and make them keep them, or I secretly hug these animals when they're not there. Come home and hug them. My husband's desperately allergic to horses. I love horses. Right, so I'll come home covered in horses and be like, hi, honey. So I'm no treasure to live with either. I'm also a total bitch. Right? Like, I have my moments where I turn around and I'm like thinking, why are you such a waste of skin? I don't say the words, but apparently my face says all the words. So I'm not prized to live with either. I mean, that's what drove me crazy about my husband, was he would do this. But imagine, by the way, my horror when my child, 15 years old, grabs the thing of peanut butter. I left your father a decade ago, and now peanut butter, because that's all I could say. I just started yelling peanut butter, shaking my finger at him, and I lost my shit. It was because, you know, this all gets very complicated. So we'll come back to the idea of marriage on Monday, but your quizzes are due
Saturday.
and your kinship diagram is due, and your discussion board course is due
Saturday.
Saturday. Thank you.